Today, Project Cheap Cherokee's getting a long arm suspension upgrade, a slip yoke eliminator kit, and 3 more inches of tie rod ground clearance the easy way. It's all today here on Trucks.
Now, this budget-minded suspension actually did pretty good, even on the rock crawling course. However, as you can see, the tires came into contact with the fender flares on several occasions on the more aggressive trails. Now, I guess we could lower the bump stops and limit the suspension travel, but that kind of defeats the purpose of an off-road suspension in the first place. So we're figuring with a long-arm suspension system and longer coil springs, we'll get the articulation and flex that we need, along with a better and smoother ride on and off-road.
And while we're in here making upgrades, well, we might as well ditch the weak factory steering setup. And we're gonna add some diff protection as well.
Now, if you're just doing the long arm swap, you can keep your coil springs and your shocks. But us, we're going for a little more altitude today as well. So the entire suspension gets ripped off and then some.
You clear?
Yep.
Now, just like the Grand Cherokee we worked on, you gotta cut off the lower control arm mounting brackets to make room for the long arms. All right, with the front suspension gutted and the control arm brackets cut off, we're almost ready to start installing this long arm upgrade kit we got from Rusty's. But like we told you, we got some work to do to the transfer case, so we want to get that done before we install our new Crossmember. Now, just like the system we put on the Grand Cherokee, it bolts in utilizing these brackets that sandwich the frame rail, holding everything together. Now, the control arms, it's a radius style arm, uses heavy duty tubing, an OEM-style rubber bushing on one end to minimize road noise and vibration, and a forged heavy-duty flex joint at the other. Now, it's greasable, preload adjustable, and rebuildable, so you get plenty of flex out of it and a long life.
Up next, we're installing our long arms and showing you why. And later, just one simple hand tool and 2 little inserts give you more tie rod ground clearance. Stay tuned.
Hey, welcome back to Trucks. Well, we got our transfer case reinstalled, complete with a slip yoke eliminator kit, and we took a little time to address these areas where we cut off the original control arm mounts on the left and right frame rail. Now, we're ready to throw on some big chunks. Now, since the original isolator was seriously deteriorated from decades of oil leaks, we threw a new one on we got from O'Reilly before we put the Rusty's Crossmember in place.
Now, like we told you earlier, this system is designed to bolt in. However, we've got a fitment issue due to our previously welded-in rocker skids. So to solve that problem, we're gonna notch this bracket and weld it in. But we still need to support the Crossmember, because that's where the control arms mount, and it needs to be nice and strong. So we're gonna remove this section here, cut out a plate that'll bolt in, and it'll evenly distribute the load along the unibody frame rail.
While Ryan takes care of the mounting bracket, I thought I'd take care of a leak that we had on the rear diff seal, which was caused by us dragging this thing over a gnarly rock course and slightly peeling back the diff cover. Now, the bad news is it's going to cost us some diff lube, but it also gives us a really good opportunity to check for debris in the bottom of the case. And rather than using an abrasive disc on a rotary tool, we're using a single-edge razor blade and some brake clean to clean off the old sealant from the mating surfaces. Now, there's different schools of thought on sealing a surface like this. Some people like the cork gaskets, some people like a combination of cork and RTV. But what we've found that works great for us is a thin film of RTV on each side of the mating surface, and just being careful not to over-torque. Now, since we have every intention of crawling rocks again, we're using Rusty's heavy-duty diff protector to keep the same thing from happening twice. And it'll keep us from caving the cover in or punching a hole in it in case we back into a rock.
All right, well, after some modifications, here's what we've got. We've got the bracket notch to fit, we've got holes drilled for some plug welds, and we've got some nuts welded to the backside of the bracket so we can use this plate to bolt everything together, sandwich the Crossmember into place, weld this bracket in, lock it down.
Now, if you're wondering why we're spending the extra money upgrading to a long arm kit, well, check this out. This is about the length of the factory lower control arm. This is our new lower control arm. And this line down here represents about the same amount of suspension drop, about 12 inches of droop. Look what happens here. The angle in the shorter arm is drastically different. And as you know, as the suspension drops, it's a single pivot point, so it pulls it back and changes the suspension geometry. That can cause binding on the trail. Not good. So the longer arm also absorbs more road energy, translating into a smoother ride. Bottom line, long arm system, smoother ride, more suspension dynamics, better articulation, less binding. Money well spent. Okay, we got to
go forward.
tilt the whole.
There we go.
Works. Okay, yeah, that's better for this side too. Now, Rusty's provides measurements to get you in the ballpark with a basic setup, but you're probably going to have to readjust with the vehicle weight on the chassis for pinion angle and other adjustments. That's it.
After the break, we're installing the steering linkage upside down. For a good reason, that is. And later, we'll flex this thing out. Stick around.
Hey, welcome back. Today, we're upgrading the suspension system on our Cheap Cherokee to a long arm kit that we got from Rusty's Off-Road Products. Now, we're also going to do a steering system upgrade while we're at it. Now, check out the stock system we took off. This drag link, it's solid. It's okay, but the tie rod is just thin wall round tubing, and if you've ever wheeled one of these vehicles, you know that these things are pretty much sacrificial. They'll bend up in a heartbeat. Not to mention, look at the tie rod ends. These things are miled up and worn out, so an upgrade is definitely necessary. Since we're going up in altitude, we're also going to use a drop pitman arm that we got with the steering system, which includes these heavy-duty pieces from Rusty's. While we're doing all of this, we'll show you guys a way to get an extra 3 inches of ground clearance for almost nothing.
Now for the final installation, don't forget the grease retaining boot and the cotter pin. And be sure to pump a few shots of grease into the tie rod end before you move on. Sweet. Now you can see from this shot how much clearance we've gained for just a few dollars over the OE setup.
Hey, put the turrets of the castle down.
Hey, welcome back to Trucks. Well, as you can see, our long arm insulation is on the home stretch. And now, with the vehicle weight down on the suspension, we can set our track bar height. On the driver's side, we're going to use a provided drop bracket. And on the other side, we're going to use a Rusty's bracket kit. And the important thing to remember is when you're setting a track bar, keep the bar itself as parallel as possible to the drag link. That way, you eliminate bump steer.
Well, our Cheap Cherokee's almost finished. And check out the clearance we gained by flipping our steering to the top side of the knuckles. And we've had a chance to weld on and paint our track bar bracket, as well as add our Rusty's track bar brace.